Some dare call it conspiracy.
Hello initiates, we've got a Someday I Call It Conspiracy extra portion for you here. This is a blog that I did quite a while ago, and it's a bit of an interesting one because at the time I was still dangling my feet in the conspiracy world quite heavily. But at the time, the EU was considered to be the worst thing on the planet. It was the stepping stone to the New World Order. It was tyrannical. They were imposing all sorts of laws on us and making our lives particularly hellish. And so I discovered that wasn't really true. And so the weird thing about this blog is it's me trying to sort of pander to the conspiracy crowd whilst actually finding stuff out about the conspiracy crowd that isn't true. It also includes mind control, manipulation programs, media manipulation, think tanks, the oil industry, stolen elections, and all that stuff that should appeal to the conspiracy crowd, but in this case didn't at all because it doesn't go along with their preconceived narrative. This is the story of Cambridge Analytica, a real conspiracy that was completely ignored by the conspiracy crowd.
Cambridge Analytica Part 6, The Kochs, and this was first published on Saturday the 16th of February 2019. Have a Coke and a smile. So, who are the Koch brothers? And what in the wide, wide world of sports do they have to do with this Cambridge Analytica stuff that you've been harping on about? Well, dear reader, I shall explain. Firstly, despite the fact that it would be a pretty fitting name, Koch is not actually pronounced like cock. Sadly, life is not a hilarious mashup of Viz magazine and Charles Dickens. Villains are rarely called Mr. Bastard. Rather, their name is pronounced Coke, like the sweet, delicious, sugary, zesty, life-affirming product popular in America and the rest of the world. There is also a drink that shares the same name and is also made in South America but is hugely profitable for the USA. I could have used that for the analogy, but I have principles and couldn't bring myself to be seen to be advocating or unfairly glamorizing something that could be harmful to children. I'm just classy like that. Koch Industries is a Kansas-based privately held corporation led by brothers Charles and David Koch, heirs to the Fred Koch oil fortune. Fred Koch liked money. A lot. He liked a lot of money, and he liked having a lot of money. A lot. The following story, taken from Vanity Fair, describes an incident which highlights this. One associate recalls strolling down East 80th Street with Frederick on a sweltering summer afternoon in the mid-1990s. Crossing Fifth Avenue, Frederick noticed a nickel in the middle of the crosswalk. It had been run over so many times that it was embedded into the asphalt. His companion looked on in shock as Frederick took out his keys, stooped down, and began trying to pry the coin loose. The multimillionaire continued to work as the traffic light changed. Traffic bore down and horns blared, but Frederick kept digging, finally dislodging the nickel. "I got it," he said, holding the coin up with a beatific expression on his face. "I was just dumbfounded," his companion recalled. "I never pick up coins in the street," Frederick responds, despite this apocryphal account. It is debated as to quite how right-wing Fred Koch was. It is strongly suggested that his nanny growing up was an avowed fascist. It has also been suggested that the young Frederick's bowel movements were regimented to a degree of regularity that you could run Japanese trains to by this Teutonic woman. Who knows? Perhaps that was the key to his business acumen later in life. Frederick Koch helped Stalin build oil refineries in Russia early in his career before trying to memory hole this. This happened in 1929 and earned Frederick $5 million, an astronomical sum at the time. After this, Frederick turned towards leaders that were decidedly more right-wing in their attitude. In 1934, Fred Koch worked with US businessman and Nazi sympathizer William Rhodes Davis to begin building a large oil refinery in Hamburg, Germany. Hitler himself personally approved of the plan. In 1935, Koch Industries were helping to provide the technology that allowed Germany to collect over 1,000 tons of crude oil a day and convert it into high-octane jet fuel. In 1938, Fred Koch said, Although nobody agrees with me, I am of the opinion that the only sound countries in the world are Germany, Italy, and Japan, simply because they are all working and working hard. Fred Koch was a founding member of the John Birch Society, a right-wing Christian organisation known for its conspiracy theories and ability to see creeping communism in every facet of existence. Political influence. America's real choice. So anyway, whilst the Mercers have only recently started making inroads into the arenas where they can manipulate policy in their favour, the Kochs have been at work for decades, infiltrating and influencing right-wing politics to more closely match their business interests. Where there's Koch, there's hospitality. The sons Charles and David proclaim themselves as libertarian and occasionally make noise about some worthy cause such as drug legalization and marriage equality. However, these proclamations never really amount to much more than talk, and the same pattern of government influence continues. Funds donated from the Koch industry's fortune are funneled through several foundations, grouped as the Koch family foundations. This somehow makes its way in the direction of politicians, and lo and behold, policy is passed that favours big business. Some have creatively called the network of think tanks and influencing bodies owned by the brothers the Kochtopus. It includes American for Prosperity, which in 2012 raised as much money as the Republican National Committee itself, the Cato Institute, Citizens for a Sound Economy, which is now defunct and split into AFP and FreedomWorks, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, George Mason University, the Heritage Foundation, the Reason Foundation, the Tax Foundation, and several other avenues of influence, as we shall see. The Koch brothers, via a series of conduits, also provide financing for the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is a right-wing think tank that, similar to the others, tries to sway public policy. The Heritage Foundation is described as one of the most influential conservative research centres in the world. Rebecca Mercer, daughter of Cambridge Analytica and Breitbart owner Robert Mercer, has been on the board of trustees since 2014. At least 66 foundation employees and alumni got staffing positions in the Trump administration. The foundation also recommended cabinet members Scott Pruitt, Betsy DeVos, Mick Mulvaney, Rick Perry, and Jeff Sessions. Author Jane Mayer highlighted how the Koch think tank Americans for Prosperity, or AFP, was actually behind the Tea Party movement in America. AFP took a lead role in organizing the Tea Party rebellion, but the Kochs insisted that they were not involved in the Tea Party movement, and as Mayer noted, such denials helped shape the early narrative in the media of the Tea Party movement as an amateur uprising by ordinary citizens. Essentially, these think tanks and other entities lobby for the elimination of renewable energy initiatives, the elimination of the EPA, elimination of mass transit, in particular state-funded railroads, the elimination of all minimum wage laws, the elimination of virtually the entire social safety net, in particular Social Security and Medicare, the elimination of the debt of Veterans Affairs, the elimination of marriage equality, the elimination of abortion, the elimination of public education, the elimination of the right to organise unions, and the elimination of most of the Civil Rights Act, legalising discrimination in the name of business. So it's pretty safe to say that these guys are elitist, industrialist scum. Lies and frauds in the alt media, or things go better with Koch. You may also remember from reading the previous blogs that the Koch brothers invested heavily in Breitbart magazine. This was done with Cambridge Analytica financier and Breitbart owner Robert Mercer via a conduit called GAI, set up by his friend Steve Bannon. This was technically illegal. Mercer and the Koch brothers also financed James O'Keefe at Project Veritas, who often interacted with Breitbart and InfoWars, most famously on his failed sting on Acorn and Planned Parenthood, where he dressed up as a pimp and offered the companies the profits from his trafficking ring. He was arrested shortly afterwards. The Daily Caller is also financed by the Koch brothers. Dave Rubin and the Rubin Report are also financed by the Koch brothers. The Washington Free Beacon is also financed by the Koch brothers. Watchdog.org and The Blaze are also heavily financed by the Kochs. Candace Owens, despite claiming to be fiercely independent, works for Turning Point USA, a far-right organisation funded by the billionaire Betsy DeVos and the Koch brothers. Candace Owens has also appeared on InfoWars and the Rubin Report. The DeVos family, over the years, have financed the Republican Party to the tune of over $200 million. Betsy DeVos is the current Secretary of Education for the USA. Betsy DeVos is part of a conservative think tank funded by the Koch brothers. Charlie Kirk, who runs Turning Point USA, is also in the pocket of the Koch brothers. Betsy DeVos's brother is Eric Prince, who runs the mercenary army Blackwater. The Heritage Foundation has also spent millions to sponsor the radio shows of Rush Limbaugh, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham, according to Politico magazine. Tucker Carlson, co-founder and editor-in-chief of The Daily Caller, also has other ties to the Kochs. He joined the Cato Institute in 2009, which the Koch brothers co-founded, and he is currently listed as a senior fellow there. The Cato Institute has received millions of dollars from the Koch family, and David Koch currently sits on Cato's board of directors. Author Jane Mayer reported that FreedomWorks, another Koch brothers think tank, quietly cemented a deal in 2011 with Glenn Beck, who was a Fox News host at the time. Beck read embedded content written by FreedomWorks staff in exchange for an annual payment. That eventually topped $1 million. Mayer further explained, they told him what to say on the air, and he blended the promotional material seamlessly into his monologue, making it sound as if it was his own opinion. Koch it is. So just to sum up there, Breitbart, Rebel Media, Project Veritas, The Washington Free Beacon, The Daily Caller, The Rubin Report, James O'Keefe, Dave Rubin, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Glenn Beck, and you can also chuck in Tommy Robinson, Richard Spencer, Laura Loomer, Lauren Southern, Milo Yiannopoulos, Ben Shapiro, Stephen Crowder, Dinesh D'Souza, PragerU, West Monster, and Gatestone Media are all admitted tools of elitist industrialists who are being used to advance their agenda whilst being disguised as organic journalism. Furthermore, they know this. They just don't respect you, and they just take the money and lie to your face. Harvesting data, building profiles, and testing persuasion models. You can't beat the feeling. So the other reason I've been interested is because of the data harvesting, profiling, and targeted advertising that the Kochs have been looking into for years. This is remarkably similar to the tactics of British intelligence weapon Cambridge Analytica, which helped Trump, Brexit, and literally dozens of other successful election campaigns, and Black Cube, the Israeli arm of Cambridge Analytica ran by Mossad, so I was intrigued. As reported in Salon magazine, new documents uncovered by the Centre for Media and Democracy show that the billionaire Koch brothers have developed detailed personality profiles on 89% of the US population, and they're using these profiles to launch an unprecedented private propaganda offensive to advance Republican candidates in the 2018 midterms. The documents also show that the Kochs have developed persuasion models that target voters with tailored messaging on select issues and partner with cable and satellite TV providers to play those tailored messages during regular television broadcasts. Over the last decade, big data and micro-targeting have revolutionized political communications, and the Kochs, who are collectively worth $120 billion, now stand at the forefront of that revolution, investing billions in data aggregation, machine learning, software engineering, and artificial intelligence optimization. In modern elections, incorporating AI into voter file maintenance has become a prerequisite to producing reliable data. The Koch's political data firm, i360, states that it has been practicing AI for years. Our team of data scientists use components of machine learning, deep learning, and predictive analytics every day as they build and refine our predictive models. This seems to be a continuation of the ongoing campaigns to reach voters with their individually tailored communications designed to provoke emotion without the recipient's knowledge. The Kochs have been looking into this since at least 2010 with a fledgling data aggregation company called Themis, In 2011, the Koch folded Themis into a data competitor it acquired, i360 LLC, which was founded by Michael Palmer, the former Chief Technology Officer of Senator John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign. Palmer still leads the organization. The point of these companies is to collect data long term and best arrange it in a manner that can be used to manipulate beliefs and voting habits in their target audience. Right now, we're talking about and building things that you won't see in 2016 because it's not going to be ready until 2018, Michael Palmer said in the wake of the 2014 midterm cycle. Those programs are now operational, and according to a successful GOP campaign manager, i360 is the best in the business at providing Republicans with voter data. The list of customers for i360 runs into the hundreds, and it can be found here. There is a link on my written version of the blog. Koch Industries usually offer such attractive prices for this voter data that they actually lose money, but this is hugely offset at the other end when policy goes their way. The Kochs usually bring in about $115 billion every year. We've got a taste for you, as Salon reported. i360's voter file identifies more than 199 million active voters and 290 million US consumers and provides its users with up to 1,800 unique data points on each identified individual. As a result, i360 and the Kochs know your vitals, ethnicity, religion, occupation, hobbies, shopping habits, political leanings, financial assets, marital status, and much, much more. They know if you enjoy fishing, and if you do, whether you prefer salt or fresh water. They know if you have bladder control difficulty, get migraines, or have osteoporosis. They know which advertising mediums, radio, TV, internet, email, are the most effective for you. i360 has the above attribute tags among hundreds of others ranked 1 to 10 or subdivided otherwise in their voter file. Diet, weight loss, interest, hearing difficulty, high cholesterol, outdoor ad preference, mobile device ad preference, internet ad preference, newspaper ad preference, internet purchase propensity, phone purchase propensity, cruise vacation propensity, education level, country of origin, ethnic code, selected member marital status code, religion, and how many years that you've stayed in your current residence. But i360 attribute codes are not limited to that 1 to 10 scale. Their knowledge of your financial standing is granular, from how much equity you have in your home to your net wealth and expendable income. They have files on your home equity, your net wealth range, your purchasing power, and your income range, and your expendable income rank. They know where you live, they know what your mortgage status is, and they even know how many bathrooms are in your house. They know your actual home value, the year you arrived, the number of rooms, the presence of a garage, the presence of a garden. i360 has also created a set of 70 cluster codes to humanize its data for campaign operatives. These categories range from faded blue collars to meandering millennials and have flamboyant descriptions that correspond with that attribute heading. A Davenport dandy, an older white conservative who shows interest in health insurance. These empty nesters get retirement income through second careers or social security. Gluten-free yuppies, single, young, highly educated professionals renting apartments in larger cities, many of whom who are located on the East Coast. They are jet-setting liberals who take advantage of the availability of specialty stores and adult education opportunities. Asians are a significant minority. The creme de la creme. These households bring home the largest paychecks. They are highly educated homeowners, most often married with children living at home. A relatively large number of these people are self-employed, primarily white, but with a significant Asian minority. These households invest their money into timeshares as well as traditional investments. They enjoy traveling for vacations as well as sports such as golf and tennis. Adopters. College-educated married couples with children. This cluster contains many heads of households aged 40 plus. They enjoy staying home and playing with their toys, be it high-end electronics, low-end sporting equipment, or the latest tech gadgets. A sueño americano. A relatively large population of Hispanics live here in the Southwest or Pacific locale. Generally married with children, many families have achieved the American dream and rewarded themselves with luxury automobiles. However, the unemployment rate is also high in these areas as the blue-collar and construction jobs that lured people to the area have dried up slightly. They enjoy watching sports through pay-per-view and also do a lot of international calling. So how did this work? You can't beat the real thing. Well, they took this data and catered it towards what might be effective for you. For example, in Ohio, they determined the opioid addiction problem was the main issue concerning voters. The thing was that there were differing opinions on the cause and solution to this affliction sweeping across the area. Some, those personally affected, saw it as a treatment and rehabilitation issue based in poverty and lack of opportunity. Some saw it as a law enforcement issue that needed to sort out the scum. The Koch brothers' machinery was able to cater adverts to both of those demographics, based on their collected data, and propose diametrically opposed policies for the same candidate. The Kochs are tailoring their advertising to you because they know nearly everything about you in exactly the same way that Cambridge Analytica did. Salon notes, this manipulation of the opioid crisis for political gain has a perverse irony given the Koch's long-running work to provide corporate interests, including healthcare and pharmaceutical interests, with undue political power and influence over public policy decisions. The Kochs have gifted over $1 million to ALEC, for example, an organization that counts Purdue Pharma, the unconscionable manufacturer of OxyContin, as a member. i360 has models on gun control, your likelihood to oppose or want stricter gun control, immigration, the likelihood to support immigration or to be appalled by it, energy, your opinion on global warming, climate change, and the energy crisis, your opinion on pro-life and abortion issues, and your opinion on marriage. And these will be used to manipulate you. When all of this is combined with the Koch's proven record of influencing media outlets either by bribing hosts or owning the outlets outright, it is, to say the least, troubling. Aside from the previous outlets mentioned, author Jane Mayer also exposed Freedom Partners Chamber of Commerce, the central group in the Koch's financial network, paid Republican strategist Frank Luntz's firm $1.5 million for messaging work in 2014. Luntz then used his media platform as an analyst at CBS News to praise the Kochs and defend their spending without disclosing his own financial ties to them. More recently, the Kochs spent $650 million to purchase Time Inc. via a company called Meredith. The reason for this gargantuan spend? Simply to remove any negative references to the Kochs from any Time publication. I can't decide whether that is Bond villain level genius or so pathetic and insecure that it makes you want to lose all faith in humanity and drives you to want to put your head in a fan. In the early years of this decade, Meredith provided stealth marketing efforts to delete critical commentary about the Koch brothers and their political ventures. New Media Strategies, a subsidiary of Meredith, was retained by Koch Industries to airbrush Wikipedia articles relating to Koch Industries, David Koch, Charles Koch, the Tea Party, and Richard Fink, a strategist for the Koch brothers' political operation. It's not clear if such relationships continued after they were exposed. An internal investigation by Wikipedia editors found that New Media Strategies employees working for the Kochs had also used a number of so-called sock puppet accounts to edit articles relating to the Kochs. In one instance, a Wikipedia editor named MB Madmira changed an entry about the Koch brothers' effort to finance groups that deny the link between pollution and climate change. In another instance, MB Madmira attempted to promote criticism of Jane Mayer, a prominent journalist who has investigated the Koch brothers. When the news was revealed, New Media Strategies confirmed its arrangement. Multiple Wikipedia accounts allegedly tied to MB Madmira only edited Wikipedia articles relating to the political activities of the Koch brothers to airbrush criticism WWB, a self-identified former New Media Strategies employee, also attempted to edit and delete this reporter's Wikipedia page. MB Madmira, named after the market-based management slogan Charles Koch says he used to run his businesses, was one of several accounts operated by New Media Strategies to shape articles relating to the Koch brothers. The edits show that New Media Strategy employees were busy working to shape the public perception of the Kochs since 2010. They want to do what to the NHS? Or Koch adds life. The Guardian recently reported that by some stroke of luck, the Koch brothers were getting preferential treatment and being courted for potentially lucrative contracts. Lucrative for them, you understand. I honestly don't think any benefit to the general public has ever come into their mind frame. A radical blueprint for a free trade deal between the UK and the US that would see the NHS open to foreign competition, a bonfire of consumer and environmental regulations, and freedom of movement between the two countries for workers is to be launched by prominent Brexiteers. A radical blueprint for a free trade deal between the UK and US that would see the NHS open to foreign competition, a bonfire of consumer and environmental regulations, and freedom of movement between the two countries for workers is to be launched by prominent Brexiteers. The text of the new trade deal has been prepared by Initiative for Free Trade, a think tank founded by the longtime Eurosceptic MEP Daniel Hannan, one of the leaders of Vote Leave, and the Cato Institute, a right-wing libertarian think tank in the USA founded and funded by the fossil fuel magnates and major political donors, the Koch family. Allow me to translate. They plan to roll back regulation and privatise the NHS in favour of an American system, which, with all due respect, is shit. It continues. The policy initiative was shaped in consultation with a group of other conservative libertarian think tanks on both sides of the Atlantic, the blueprint explains. These include UK organisations whose funding is opaque, such as the Institute for Economic Affairs, the IEA, and the Adam Smith Institute, among others in the UK, and others in the US, including the Heritage Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute, the AEI, and the Competitive Enterprise Institute. The authors argue for a free trade agreement that would loosen government controls on capital and data flows and be more liberalising than any other free trade agreement in the world. They say it could become a model for future deals post-Brexit. It would remove tariffs and throw out the precautionary principle that has guided much EU regulation on GM foods, chlorine-washed chicken, hormones in meat, pesticides, and chemicals in cosmetics. Allow me to translate again. The quality of food and regulations for product safety would be greatly reduced. Also, they would have even more access to your data. This is fucking appalling. Just in case you thought this was not connected to Brexit, well, guess who also stands to make money and gain influence from this? Sarcastic drumroll. David Davis, Liam Fox, Boris Johnson, and Michael Gove. All arch Brexiteers. Are you getting the feeling you've been cheated yet? In the UK, the researchers behind the blueprint have had exceptional access to ministers in both the Department for International Trade and the Department for Exiting the European Union, with IEA staff and its head of trade policy, Shankar Singham, meeting Liam Fox, David Davis, Steve Baker, and other ministers and special advisors on numerous occasions since the referendum result. Fox has given speeches at both the Heritage Foundation and the AEI before and after the referendum. The IFT itself had a controversial birth last summer. It was initially launched as the Institute for Free Trade, but was forced to change its name to the Initiative for Free Trade following a Companies House investigation that enforced the rule that Institute may only be used by bodies conducting significant independent research and not by lobby groups. It also came under fire when the then Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson allowed it to use the Foreign Office map room for its launch, free of its usual charge for outside bodies. As well as Johnson, prominent hardline cabinet Brexiteers Fox and Michael Gove were guests at that launch. I will go as far as to say this. David Davis, Liam Fox, Boris Johnson and Michael Gove are all in the pockets of the Koch brothers. So, it would seem, is Jacob Rees-Mogg. The Koch side of life. I realise that some of you may be wondering where on earth is that haunted hockey stick Jacob Rees-Mogg in all of this. Fear not, he has been lying just as much and therefore will also be rewarded greatly. That is even without discussing Somerset Capital Management. You see, that is his firm that stands to make literally billions arranging trade deals after Brexit. The more chaotic the exit, no deal for example, the more lovely cash they make. They've also opened 2 new branches in Ireland so that they can continue to enjoy the benefits of being in the world's largest trading bloc, despite campaigning for the last 2 years that this is a terrible thing to be in. In his defence, he claims that the move has nothing to do with Brexit. It was simply so that certain of their clients would still be able to work with them post-Brexit. Yes, I know. Please don't try and navigate that amount of bullshit. You will give yourself cholera. He also stands to be able to hide his offshore holdings. Anyway, he was trying to help launch Turning Point UK, as was reported in The Independent. Jacob Rees-Mogg and several Conservative MPs have been criticised for supporting a new right-wing group vowing to target British students. Turning Point UK is an offshoot of American organisation Turning Point USA, which has links to Donald Trump's administration and became notorious for creating a watch list of leftist university professors that has drawn comparisons with McCarthyism. The article continues. It has repeatedly denied racism accusations by former staff and ejected several members following scandals over racial slurs. But a report by counter-extremism group Hope Not Hate said Turning Point USA was mainstreaming extreme views, including the white genocide conspiracy theory and Islamophobia. Founder Charlie Kirk is a prominent supporter of Mr. Trump and has been photographed with Donald Trump Jr. and other relatives of the president. He is scheduled to visit British universities at a series of Turning Point UK events starting next month, which spokeswoman Candice Owens said would cause a disruption in socialist ideology. Alright. Its chairman is George Farmer, a former member of Oxford University's Bullingdon Club and the son of former Conservative Treasurer Lord Farmer. Public records show that Mr. Farmer donated a total of more than £30,000 to the party in January and March 2018 and attended an elite leaders group dinner with Theresa May, Boris Johnson and other Conservative ministers as a major donor. Mr. Farmer is engaged to Turning Point USA Communications Director Miss Candice Owens, who is a high-profile supporter of the US president and critic of the Black Lives Matter movement. Yes, just in case you missed that, Candice Owens is engaged to a Bullingdon Club member. For those not in the know, this is like a fraternity, but an extremely exclusive one in an extremely exclusive university, exclusively populated by the very wealthy and the top of the British aristocracy. Their playful schoolboy japes include trashing restaurants and then throwing cash at the horrified owners, or the simple pleasures of incinerating £50 notes in front of the homeless and destitute. There was a pattern noted amongst the attendees that people familiar with the previous blog posts might notice. Other members included Believe and Brexit Central founder Darren Grimes, who was fined £20,000 for breaking EU referendum spending laws last year. Tom Harwood, a Guido Fawkes reporter who ran the student wing of the Vote Leave campaign, is also in the group alongside Leave Means Leave digital strategist Steve Eddington. Mr. Eddington also directs the Pro-Brexit Politics UK YouTube channel and writes for the Westminster website, which is co-owned by Aaron Banks and Nigel Farage's former press advisor, Michael Heaver. A launch event held for Turning Point UK in London last month was reportedly attended by right-wing figures, including Leave.eu campaigner Andy Wigmore, InfoWars editor-at-large Paul Joseph Watson, and Breitbart London editor James Dellingpole. So, whenever you think that the world is harsh and things are not going your way, thank your lucky stars you were not forced to endure that room of insecure lying weasels. There is more to this concerning the Atlas Network, which is essentially the Koch brothers' think tank network in South America. Put simply, they have been influencing the elections in Argentina, Chile, Venezuela, and Brazil. Astute readers will see the connection. But that's for next time, as there is probably far too much in this post already, so I'll just leave this. Atlas has played a role in Venezuela. Records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, as well as the State Department links revealed by Chelsea Manning, refer to as sophisticated efforts of US politicians to use Atlas think tanks in a long campaign to destabilize the Venezuelan government as early as 1998. Sedis Libertad, the flagship of Atlas in Caracas, received regular financial support from the Center for International Private Enterprise. The funds that NED assigns for Sedis are explained as helping advocate a change in government. Sedis Libertad provides support to the leaders of the conservative opposition, including Maria Corina Machado. The director of Sedis signed the Carmona Decree, which established the brief dictatorship after the civic-military coup against Hugo Chavez in 2002. A 2006 cable referred to a strategy of US Ambassador William Brownfield to finance politically active non-profit organizations in Venezuela to strengthen democratic institutions towards the penetration of Hugo Chavez's political base, the division of Chavismo, and above all, the protection of vital businesses at the international level. Now, what interest the Koch brothers might have in an oil-rich country like Venezuela is anyone's guess.
Some dare call it conspiracy.
Thank you for listening to Some Dare Call It Conspiracy. Follow us on Twitter at Some Dare Podcast for all the latest from us. And if you want to support us, please consider joining us on patreon.com/somedarecallitconspiracy. You'll be able to get early access to episodes, including each full deep dive series on day one, and exclusive Patreon-only episodes. When you subscribe to our Initiate tier for a $5 or our Handler tier for a $10, you'll get a welcome pack of 4 of Neil's books, 8 of my albums and EPs, and a PDF of Headache Comics 4, courtesy of Nicholas C. Gray. And to our first Patreons, thank you so much for your support from the both of us at Some Dare Call It Conspiracy.